Ancient Egypt was ruled by a man who claimed to be a god. Firawn demanded total submission, forcing an entire empire to bow down and worship him as their supreme lord. But beneath the golden palaces was a population living in darkness. The Bani Israil were systematically stripped of their freedom, forced into grueling, endless labor to drag the heavy stones that built Pharaoh's empire. They were kept weak intentionally, because a broken people cannot challenge a throne. Then, the ruler's terrifying grip began to slip. According to historical tafsir, Firaun had a terrifying dream. He saw a massive fire erupting from the direction of Jerusalem, tearing across his borders and burning the homes of his Egyptian subjects, while leaving the Bani Israil entirely untouched. When his advisors predicted a boy from the Bani Israil would rise to destroy his kingdom, Pharaoh ordered the immediate execution of every newborn male from that community. He slaughtered thousands of infants to protect his crown. A deity doesn't fear babies. This desperate massacre revealed the truth. Underneath the gold and the god complex was a fragile, terrified man. Into this era of terror, Musa was born. Fearing the executioners, his mother received divine inspiration. She built a small wooden chest, carefully placed her infant son inside, and released him into the currents of the flowing river. The river carried the chest straight to the steps of Firaun's own palace. When the pharaoh's wife, Asiya, opened it, she immediately felt a deep affection for the child. She pleaded to keep him, and Firaun, looking directly at the very bloodline he was trying to exterminate, arrogantly agreed to adopt him. Musa grew up inside those palace walls, but after stepping in to defend an oppressed man and accidentally striking an Egyptian guard with a fatal blow, he was forced to flee. He spent the next 10 years in the harsh deserts of Madian, shedding his royal upbringing to become a humble shepherd. By ordering a mass execution to stop a prophecy, Firaun forced Musa's mother to put him in the water. That decision delivered the boy straight into Firaun's arms. In his absolute desperation to outsmart fate, the tyrant ended up feeding, sheltering, and raising the exact man meant to bring down his empire. Decades later, Musa returns. He walks back into the grand throne room, accompanied only by his brother Harun and carrying a simple shepherd's staff. He stands before the most powerful monarch on earth. Firaun looks down at the man he once raised and sneers. He demands to know exactly who this lord is that Musa claims to represent. Musa answers without hesitation. He declares that his lord is the one who grants life and causes death, the true sovereign over everything in existence. To protect his ego, Firaun stages a public spectacle. He summons the greatest illusionists in the kingdom. They throw their ropes and staffs onto the ground, and to the terrified crowd, the floor suddenly appears to be writhing with dangerous snakes. Then, Musa drops his wooden staff. It doesn't cast a trick shadow or create an illusion. It violently warps into a massive, living beast that immediately hunts down and consumes every fake snake in the room. The magicians recognize genuine power instantly. They drop to their knees in submission to Musa's lord. Firaun's entire reign relied on tricking people into believing he was untouchable. Now, thousands of citizens had just watched that carefully crafted mythology evaporate in seconds. Firaun lashes out. Humiliated and blinded by rage, he refuses to concede and doubles down on his cruelty. The consequences hit the entire country. The skies darken with aggressive storms. Soon after, massive swarms of locusts sweep across the Nile, stripping the fields bare and obliterating the nation's food supply. The environmental collapse accelerates. Lice infest the population. Millions of frogs emerge, covering every surface. Then the water itself turns crimson, killing the fish and choking the life out of the rivers. Even as his citizens starve and his economy crumbles, Firaun dismisses every escalating catastrophe as elaborate sorcery. He looks at his bleeding rivers and calls it a trick. He had every opportunity to stop the suffering. By choosing his ego over the survival of his people, Firaun actively dragged his empire into ruin, sacrificing the wealth and health of millions to preserve the fiction that he was a god. Under the cover of darkness, Musa leads the Bani Israil out of their homes. They leave behind the monuments they were forced to build and walk toward freedom. When daylight reveals the empty city, Firaun snaps. He rallies a massive, heavily armed military force, thousands of soldiers and chariots, determined to crush the escaping slaves. The Bani Israil march until they run out of land. They hit the shores of the Red Sea. They look out at the deep, crushing waves, and then they hear the thunder of Firawn's army approaching from behind. It was a perfect tactical trap. Firawn looked at the bottleneck and assumed victory was guaranteed. He actually believed his physical weapons and chariots could override a divine rescue plan. Musa tells his terrified people that their Lord is with them. Following a divine command, he strikes the surface of the water with his staff. The laws of physics fracture. The massive body of water tears open, rising up into two towering, solid walls and exposing a dry path right down the middle. Any rational leader would look at an ocean defying gravity and retreat. Firaun charges directly into it. He orders his men onto the seabed, convinced his earthly authority extends into the supernatural corridor. Once the last of the Bani Israil reach the opposite shore, the water is released. Millions of tons of ocean collapse inward. As the waves swallow his army, Firaun realizes he is about to die. In a final, desperate gasp, he screams out that he believes in the God of Musa. But the declaration comes too late. He drowns. However, a divine decree ensures his body doesn't vanish into the ocean floor. His physical corpse is forcefully ejected and preserved. He spent his life demanding people worship him as an immortal creator. Now, his mummified shell sits in a museum under glass. It serves as a permanent physical reminder that absolute arrogance and tyranny ultimately end as dust.